Okay, so I said Dale would be next up, and Dale it shall be, so I shall set up the battle. Okay, so the enemy are in place, and so, Dale. They are very much based upon the template of the other kingdoms of men, and they share most in common with Gondor and Arnor, and those are two very good factions to have something in common with, and each of these three generally has one area that they specialize in. So for instance, I mentioned that Gondor has got the best polearms, and Dale's area of expertise is their composite bows, their archers. In terms of skirmishing power, these guys, in terms of the non-elven factions, are certainly the strongest, and they can probably give the elves a run for their money as well, honestly, but we'll get to their skirmishers towards the end. We'll start off down with their lower tier units. So you have your basic spears, of course. You have Ravanian spears and Hearth Watchmen. They're pretty much the same in terms of what they can do. They're spears, they're cheap, basically a meat shield. You also have your missile units, which can also go into melee, similar to the Marines. But honestly, again, these guys are a bit cheap for, well, they are cheap enough that maybe it's worth it in a low funds game, but most of the time you're not going to see these because you're going to make use of Dale's more long range units, and these guys are pretty similar again, javelin men. They have a good spread of low tier units, to be honest. The Dalesmen, good, decent charge, bonus fighting cavalry. But mostly from here on up, the Dale Swordsman is where you're going to see most of their units come from because, higher tier, or higher money games rather. So you have the Dale Swordsman, which again, pretty basic unit. It does okay. It's, I guess, similar in scope to the Gondor Infantry, only not quite as good. And the similar story here with the Ravanian Gadrorts. I think I'm saying that right, or Gadrorts, or something along those lines. These guys are like the Gondor Spears, only I think, again, they're slightly worse. But they'll get the job done. They might even be cheaper than the Gondor equivalent, these two units. So maybe that's something worth bearing in mind. They also have the Dale Swordsmasters, which are their most elite shock infantry. And honestly, these guys are probably the most underwhelming unit in the Dale roster, at least at the high end, because they look very impressive, they've got decent stats, but in practice they tend to die too quickly. It seems like they don't have enough health to really stay in there, especially compared to the battle-ready Dunedain of Eriador and Arnor. That unit is much better at doing this job than the Swordsmasters, but it's still a nice option to have, a decent shock unit, because some factions don't have a shock unit at all, and to have several in Dale is a good one, and this one is the best of the bunch. Then you come to their pike unit, and this pike unit is excellent. The Barding Herd is kind of expensive for what it is, but it still does the job extremely well. They look very cool as well, probably the coolest looking pike unit. They've got more of a halberd, to be honest, but between this and the Ravanian Gadrorts, they have very decent polearms. Not quite as good as Gondor, but certainly on par, if not better than Arnor. So that's something worth bearing in mind. And then you have the sort of standard most elite heavy infantry unit of the faction, which are the Earls. Naturally, there's a mounted version we'll get to later on as well. These guys, they do what they say on tin. They're certainly very, very good in terms of heavy infantry, but I think they're slightly worse than the Swan Knights, and they're certainly worse than the dismounted Dunedain Knights of the other two factions, which are the closest comparisons, but they are at least on par, I think, with the Runic most elite infantry and Harad. I think they might be slightly better than the Serpent Guard, actually, I don't know. But they're certainly going to get the job done, and you're going to see Earls in pretty much any army, because of course heavy infantry is king. Moving on to the Cav next, I'll save the archers for last. You have, your basic Cav, you have simple, cheap Cav around here. They'll get the job done, but the two units that are most interesting are the 8th Woda Horse Guards, which I think that's how you say it, and the Earls, of course. Now the Earls, basically are going to be the same as any other very high tier Cav, very handy in the right situation, but the fact that you have these guys as well, which are, nearly as good, they do take a bit of a hit on in terms of like stats while they're in melee, but these guys' charge is excellent. And their price also doesn't drop after just having one unit of them. So it gives Dale a pretty decent cav presence. It means their varied cav means you can probably field more cav, more useful cav than Gondor. But I would still say that Arnor have probably got the advantage when it comes to cav, but we'll get to them in a later episode. But now we'll get to the point of Dale that is most powerful. And that is their four composite bow units. Although these guys, pretty cheap, pretty basic, chances are you won't be seeing them. You will, however, be seeing these three. The longbows are a cheap unit that have very good missile attack, actually, for their price point. And if you wanted to save money on your archers, which it's not likely you will as Dale, but the option is there, that you'll basically be able to match up against any other faction in terms of bows and spend less if you use these guys exclusively. Now, it's worth saying that these guys are very vulnerable to cav charges, and they are also going to get shot to pieces out of loose formation by other archers, because they are just wearing a tunic. But it's worth saying, very cheap, very effective if you can use them correctly. However, the two units which are going to be most prevalent for Dale are going to be the Athala Rangers, which again, pretty similar in function to the Athelian Rangers of Gondor and the Dunedain Rangers of Arnor. In fact, I think their stats probably are going to be identical. The only difference is these guys I think look the coolest, but still, Rangers, very good in melee, can deploy stakes, and have excellent missile capabilities. They are expensive, and you can only have 2, I think, or maybe 3, we'll see. Moving on to their best archer though, and that is the Bardian Marksman. These guys are the best archer unit that you can get in the Kingdoms of Men. And, naturally, heavy armor, decent in melee when they run out of arrows, but really the main event is when they have arrows. And, well, they can rack up the kills like no other human archer unit, at least. I think the Sylvan Elves can boast better individual units of archers than these guys, but again, that's a discussion for another day. So we'll set up our army now, and we will have a cav presence, I think. So we'll have 2 horse guards and 1 earls with my general in it, so that'll give me a nice cav presence. And now for our main line, we'll have 2 units of earls, we'll have 5 units of Barding Herd. We're going to want 6 archers, I think, so we'll have 3 Bardian Marksmen and 3 Rangers. This will allow us to get an incredible amount of arrows downfield. And then the rest of my army will have 2 Swordsmasters for shot capabilities, and then 2 Spears, just in case we need to form up some Skilltroms to pad out our line a little bit more. Oh yes, and the Mounted Earls can't upgrade their armor. Already got the maximum amount of armor you're allowed with them. And the regular Earls, that's an interesting one actually, because I believe the Swan Knights do not have that, which means these guys will be more resilient to skirmishers than perhaps some other forms of heavy infantry, but in melee they're very slightly worse than the Swan Knights. I believe that's the level you're going to be working with, so that's worth mentioning, that perhaps in terms of heavy infantry Dale lag a tiny bit behind the other Kingdoms of Men, but it's not enough to make it a problem. At least in my experience it hasn't been. Dale, I really like Dale. I don't know whether they challenge Gondor for my favourite faction overall, but they're pretty darn close. But then again, as I've said, Gondor, Dale and Arnor are all pretty similar in how they work. It just depends on your playstyle. And Dale have a more defensive playstyle with their archers. You can force people to come to you, so that's why I imagine Dale are pretty popular. Right, let's give my cav some chevrons. Can I give my general another chevron? I cannot. That's a shame. What about a horse guard unit? No. Well, that'll do then. My army is set up. Of course, we shall be playing on the Dale map. Fighting Mordor, Gundabad and a Runic army. Naturally, Rune will be the army that have got a bit more quality to them. Okay, so they're all going to be coming from the same sort of place, which is interesting. This does mean we can actually set up a little bit more easily, although Rune, I think, are the closest faction, which is a bit of a shame. My archers will probably deal with them pretty effectively. Hold on. I want to get a wider line than that, I think. Put them in guard mode. Have a unit of Gadrorts over here. I think I'm saying that right. I might be wrong, but we'll have a unit of them over here in Skilltron and guard mode. Same on this side, I think. Just gives my line a bit of extra width, which might be handy because I don't know exactly what they're going to do. It might be that Gundabads swing around way over here. Next, the support line will be the Dale Swordsmasters, because on the charge, which is what they're best at, they're going to be pretty effective at charging in and supporting the herd if they need it. Right, and now for the main attraction. We'll have, first of all, we'll have a unit of the Thala Rangers. Don't want them on skirmish mode. Deploy some stakes, just because why not? I doubt they're going to break through my line, to be honest, but as for my Bardian marksmen, we'll keep them a little bit further back. These guys are very, very deadly. Very good in melee as well when they run out of ammo. And that leaves 2 units of Earls I have. Ooh. Which I'll put 1 unit. Actually, I'll put 1 unit at either side. No, that's the wrong unit. Okay, so this is the one with the chevron. So I'll put this one over here just in case Gundabad do swing around wide. Put 1 unit over here. And then for the Cav, which is going to go right at the back. And there we go. Well, they deployed kind of far away, actually. Interesting deployment. That's Mordor. Oh, Rune. Ah, Rune are over here. Okay, interesting. Gundabad are the army which I think are going to be most vulnerable to my Cav, because they have the least amount of basic spear infantry. Most of their units are just straight up melee infantry, which has its benefits, I won't deny. Get a nice shot of my rangers. They look kind of like the thief starting armor in Dark Souls 3. Excellent. Right, well, we're going to be spraying down Rune. You guys need to target the Lokflag Rim, because they're a pretty dangerous unit. At least they're the most dangerous unit that Rune have to offer. Looks like Mordor are on the way. My archers aren't going to run out of ammo as quickly as the crossbows did in the last battles. My skirmishers have been crossbows for the last 2 battles. Isengard and the dwarves. It's nice to have excellent composite bows again. Doesn't really matter as much when you arc the shots on these unless they're right up in the air. Yeah, really shredding through these guys now. Looks like they're going to charge into my Gadrorts. They're only clansmen, so they're not going to get very far. It's a shame that Rune deployed closest to me because they've got the smallest army. And will likely be thinned out to an almost unrecognisable degree by the time Mordor get here. Certainly by the time Gundabad get here. Mordor have got a pretty big army though, as you can see. Got some Orc Raiders, Uruk Halberds. Nice formation they've got going on. Okay, well I think it's a good idea if I swing my Cav out wide, so that I can start going after Gundabad when they arrive. Because chances are I will have... what am my Cav doing? Chances are I would have run out of missiles by then. What are you guys doing? Should probably target a more useful unit like the Lote Flag Rim. Or even better actually, the Uruk Halberds. Because they will put up a fight against my my pike line. And I think we've already thinned out the herd considerably enough over here. That unit is taking a hammering. The unit of clansmen is down to 21. So yeah, it's going to be obvious what my most effective unit here is going to be, I think. Those Orc Raiders swinging out very wide, probably going after my cavalry. They're going to peel off a few more units. I mean, they're Orc Raiders. Only backed up by Orc, well, more and on guard. Mordor taking heavy casualties as they come in as well. Orc band, they're not going to get too far against my barding herd, I wouldn't have thought. Keep an eye on my horse guards. Very good charge, but in the sustained melee, even more so than most other forms of cav, they're not very good. So you've got to be careful. Potentially devastating, but potentially a waste. Well, it looks like they've already committed their army to the middle, so I can move out this unit of Earls. Well, they're keeping a unit of Lote Flag Rim kind of back. Attack them. Oh, pardon me. Okay, more and on guard. We'll charge in the Earls. Orc Raiders. They're getting stuck into my Earls as well. Good thing that I have this unit of Cav back here. What are they? Orc Fellas, Uruks. Actually, let's charge into the Uruks. They're a pretty good unit to go after. Defeat seems certain. I've already hacked down half of one army, which I would assume is Rune. My horse guards are on the way. Gonna get into these Uruks. The Orc Raiders are not gonna get much done. Horse guard are taking their time on the charge, honestly. I'll charge into this unit of Uruks actually, they seem to be coming towards me. This is gonna be a nasty charge. Yeah, that's a lot of units, but I have taken some casualties of my own. I think it's about time I got back here and tried to break this section of the line. Got to be careful with these guys, they're more fragile than you'd expect. You guys charge in here, you guys charge in here. Those halberds? No, they're axemen. What's going on over that side? Yeah, they're not gonna make any impact there. Orc Maulers, let's go attack them. These Orc Raiders are going to be evaporated by this hammer and anvil, and they're routing. Not surprising. Although I am starting to run out of my horse guards already. Those Orc Raiders are routing. More and on guard. Not the best target to go after with my cav. The Earls are more durable, but they're also a lot more expensive. Just got to keep cycling around, get as many kills as I possibly can with them. They're charging into my Earls, that's going to allow me to victory is a certainty against Orc Raiders in melee. That's how poor these guys actually are in melee. Sustained melee anyway. Defeat is almost a certainty. Let's keep cycle charging in and out. Well, we could go after these Orc Raiders. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try and sandwich these Orc Raiders. Rout them off the field. Because that unit has taken too much casualties. My Earls are going to best it pretty easily. Come on, move. Yeah, they really want my Horse Guards dead. I can't blame them, because I'm starting to cause a bit of havoc in their ranks. They're wavering. Don't think I'm going to be able to rout them though. No, they're only shaken now. I need to get out of there. Shooting them to pieces with arrows. Orc Raiders. Turn around and see if we can break them. Have they regrouped? Yeah, they have. They're eager as well. Yeah, this part of the line's starting to look a little bit thin. Surely they're going to break. Yet they're broken. Victory is a distinct possibility over there. Charge into these guys, try and rout them. Most of the time has been spent trying to micro my cav, but my line is held pretty darn well. The Earls are even pushing out on this side. Might even give them a hand, actually. Well, I think this part of the line is probably where I should focus my attention a little bit more. Send over some Swordsmasters. I've got silver chevrons on my Horse Guard, so they've certainly paid for themselves at this point. Those are Orc Fellas, Orc Raiders, a unit of only 53. Okay, yeah, let's rout them. Orc Marauders are coming around the flank. That's not exactly what I wanted to see. Defeat is a distinct possibility. Those Orc Raiders should rout, although they're not dying too quickly. Okay, let's get my cav out of there. Okay, let's charge in my Swordsmasters into the line here. Snaga Stalkers don't really need to get... well, it's in the middle though. We'll charge out. Starting to run low on ammo in my archers anyway. In fact, I think I'm out in all of them, so they'll essentially be infantry. Oh dear. That's not the best move by them, because they've left themselves wide open for my cav to just slaughter them. Right, those are Orc Marauders. Probably won't do much to that unit. And the Orc Fellas are broken already. They are trying to get in and around, so I do applaud them for that, but ultimately, because my archers have run out of ammo, I don't really care anymore. Should I chase them? Victory is a distinct possibility. Defeat seems certain. There goes the charge, the pincer movement on those Orc Marauders. Defeat is almost a certainty. Distinctly, yeah, they're starting to slow down now. Snaga Stalkers. They're going to be no danger to my general whatsoever. Those Uruks are fighting to the death. Dale Swordsmasters are way further forward than I thought they would be. There's a Goblin Band. We'll get my Rangers out into the fight, why not? Those Snaga Stalkers have been eviscerated. I'm going to try and deal with those Orc Marauders with my depleted Horse Guard. Those Snaga are very much dead now. Thala Rangers, you can attack the Orc Fellas. I don't think I'll even need to use my... oh wait, yes I will. Goblin Band have gotten around. Victory seems certain. One of my units of Earls is actually very depleted. Can't believe I didn't see that. Charging 2 Bardian Marksmen over there. Orc Marauders are shaken. Being harassed by my cav. I might as well group my cav together all as one at this point. Those Orc Marauders are going to break very quickly against this mob that I've set up. Orc Fellas are steady. Defeat is a certainty. That's a bit of a concern. We'll send over a unit of archers over on this side. Yeah, my Swordsmasters are running out of steam now at this point. More on guard. I'll get into them. It's a small unit, so the charge is going to just absolutely eviscerate them, I would imagine. Those Thala Rangers. Gonna move my pikes forward a little bit. Just try and get them into the fight. Yeah, those goblin band are not gonna be up to much now that they're pretty much surrounded by my decent in melee archers. Snaga stalkers are not gonna be sufficient. Defeat is a distinct possibility. We're gonna rout them off the field at this rate, and then I'm free to essentially engage this blob. Although, well, that's a gold chevron on my horse guard, which is pretty darn good. Victory is a distinct possibility for the Snugger. Are you kidding me? Now defeat is a distinct possibility. We need to get the charge off, though, really. In fact, we'll get into the backs of these guys. Just try and break part of their line.
For the moment, the fortune of battle goes our way. Let's pray it remains as such.
That was a very meek charge.
They have lost half their men.
But it was enough to rout their units. Right, we need to stop these guys because they're trying to get in and around. Oh, no, they're routing. Okay. Well, we're starting to rout pretty much all their units at this point. We'll go after the Misty Mountains General. This unit of Earls is over here. Unit of Swordsmasters is over here. Still some fighting going on that front. Get these guys out of formation and charge them in, I think. Yeah, this is the end now. There goes the Runic General. Coolest looking General Award. There goes the Gundabad General. I believe the Dale General just has the same unit model as one of the Mounted Earls. Yeah, they're all routing. And there we go. Wow, the Runic kills. I mean, they did get hacked to pieces at the start. Gundabad did okay, actually. I mean, they arrived on the scene after all my archers had expended their ammo, so it's not terribly surprising. Horse Guards got a lot of kills. They sustained quite a lot of casualties as well, but then, you know, there's really no helping that. Cav just doesn't have enough unit models to really sustain itself, but if you look at the amount of kills my archers got, 590 on one of my ranger units, everything got above 400, which was really where the battle was won. The Barding Herd, you know, again, held the line. The Earls got a good amount of kills. They did themselves proud. The Gadrorts, you know, similar to the Barding Herd. Swordsmasters, this one, I think this was the one that was just stood there for a while, so it didn't get a lot of kills. This one did okay, though. But yeah, you know, that's the power of Dale's skirmishers. If you use it to their fullest extent, then you're going to shred through units like basic orcs, and if you target units like Loke Flag Rim, like I did then, you're going to take out targets very quickly. Really, Dale's weakness, I would say, is probably after their archers expend their ammunition. You could tell that towards the end there, the orcs were trying to cycle around me, and they were having a bit more joy, which is probably where Dale have their weakness, although outlasting Dale is not really a terribly good strategy, because you're going to have to eat all the archers' ammo first, which is going to cause you a great deal of damage. I don't know really about Dale's weakness. I guess probably Cav getting into their archers, or just rushing them, trying to get into them as quickly as possible, trying to nullify the threat of their archers. But it's difficult when you play against a faction which can force you to come to them, because it basically makes you careless if you're not careful. And then Dale also have the Cav to punish reckless charges, which is, you know, the more I think about it, the better Dale as a faction seem to be. But next time we'll go back to the evil factions, and I think we'll make a return to the Easterlings and go for Harad. And, you know, they're a pretty varied faction depending on the rules.